We're on.
You're okay, George.
I'm okay, George? Oh, George, you're okay.
I'm the only one over here.
I'm okay, you're
Next
okay.
time, take a shower. Welcome to Getting to Know
We don't want to sit
Jesus.
in front of the.
I had a shower, my
Yeah.
friend.
We don't want to sit.
We
in front
are
of the-
in lesson 60 tonight, which is on volume 5, pages 81 to 91. The Bible text is on pages 82 through 84. And your lesson notes are on pages 85 through 89. You got your pens out there from Northside Christian Church. You can write your notes in the book and take them home and study them all you want, over and over again. Jesus has sent the apostles out on a mission trip some time ago. We really don't know how much time span this was, a week, month, I don't know. But the apostles report back from their mission trip, and we are going to be celebrating the victory. So here's our little timeline. We have actually been at Getting to Know Jesus for a year, and here we are actually wrapping up the second year of Jesus' ministry. Where'd my pointing device go? It got away from me. I lose more pointing devices that way.
On the floor.
Oh well. Yep, there it is. Now you don't see him? Now you do. So we're right down here at the end of the second year of ministry. We're going to be getting into the third year of ministry as we're going through the next few lessons. Have you ever gone out into a neighborhood to invite people to come to church? Or have you ever talked to an individual or a group about becoming a Christian and invited them to make a decision for Christ? Did you find it an exciting experience when you got a positive response from your efforts? Yeah, some of you know what that feeling is. Others of you have got something to discover. What does it mean to you to know that you had a part? You know that you had a part in leading another soul to Christ.
There's no way to describe it.
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that during
Simply
discussion
knowing
time.
that you're doing the will of God.
Yeah.
The latent
Yeah.
pleasure and all
It's a
this.
blessing you
Just-
can't describe.
That gives you goose pimples sometimes up your elbows. That's
Yeah.
happy.
You give you goose pimples.
And the
Yes.
first person you thank for it is Jesus.
Yes.
That's right.
Would you call it
we're
an
in
adrenaline
Matthew.
rush?
Huh?
Almost an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a way, better than an adrenaline rush.
Lord,
You
Jesus.
don't have to kind of come off the high. You can hang on to it for a while.
There was
We're
a,
in Matthew chapter 14, verses 13 through 15, Mark 6, verses 30 through 36, Luke 9, 10 through 12, and John even gets into this lesson tonight.
Yeah.
Chapter 6, verses 1 through 5. The apostles returned from their mission, outreach, and report to Jesus what happened. So here's what happens when you celebrate the victory. Number one, you can do good things for God. Mark 6:30 and Luke 9, the first part of verse 10. When the apostles returned and gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done, what they had done, and taught, Jesus trained 12 common men from a variety of backgrounds. 4 of them were fishermen. 1 was a tax collector, which most Jews would consider a traitor. 1 was a zealot, which would, let's see now, what would we compare today? A zealot. One that was just super...
Black Panther?
No, more than that, terror.
Well,
Well,
that's
they could
kinda-
as well look at you. I mean, they could as well
You'd
look
be
at
like
you.
a television.
He'd
Republican.
that's what I
rather
was
kill the
thinking, some
Romans
of them.
than look at them.
a
Yeah.
Republican.
No.
No.
I don't think Republicans would quite fit that example either.
No, I'd put them either Ku Klux Klan or a Black
Oh, okay.
Panther.
Something like a Ku Klux Klan or Black Panther. Yeah, some kind of a militant, antisocial,
Yeah.
and then a
Oh.
few other odds and ends
Yeah.
in between that, including one Judean who turned out to be a traitor. We'll find out later on. But he trained those 12 guys, and they've had a year, well, there was a year of obscurity, and at the end of the first year, Jesus chose the 12 apostles. So they've had 1 year of training, hand on hand, face to face, close training with Jesus. And it's just been kind of somewhat general training because Jesus has been speaking to the big crowds. We're going to see as we go into the third year that he spends more time with the 12 apostles and a little more focus on teaching them and less on the crowds. But here he is. He's only had them for a year and sent them out to be witnesses for him. Who are the best witnesses for Christ in the church? Anybody know right offhand?
Say what?
Who are the most effective witnesses for Christ?
Brand new Christian.
Brand new Christian.
Brand new Christian.
That's right.
Absolutely.
They don't know one end from another about the Bible and all that other stuff,
But they're
church
in
doctrine
love
and
with
this and-
Jesus.
but they know what Jesus did when He came into their heart, and they will share with a passion.
They're on the
Us old
line.
fogies that have been around Christ for so long, we don't know what good He is.
That's why.
I
That's
think we
why
hang
we
around
need.
with our other Christian friends because
We
we're
hang
our
around,
friends.
and yeah, we don't have non-Christian friends, and we're kind of like
Yeah.
the news worn off, and we're in our comfort zone. A lot of us are.
That's why it always says we need to get back to our first love.
First
We
love,
hate
get
it.
get that enthusiasm, get that passion. How did you feel when you first accepted Christ and you realized my sins are as they had never been? Wow!
Yeah.
We'll light that fire under somebody.
Yeah.
He trained those men to fulfill a life-changing mission because he saw qualities in them that were beyond what they had been doing. They took the challenge and they found out they could do miracles and actually change people's lives for the better. What makes you feel better than anything else in the world than when you've done something for somebody else that has changed their life for the better? Now, if you did something for somebody that messed their life up and made it worse, you kind of like,
There's only one thing better than that, and that's do it to a dozen of them.
do it to a dozen of them.
There you go.
If one is good, a dozen is 12 times as good. So you people want to hear what the apostles have to say. They want to hear what Jesus has to say, and they respected Jesus. They respected the apostles for their message, and some of them responded. Not all of them, but some of them did. And every victory is a victory. I'm grateful for that. Well, you have talents that are unique to you and valuable to the work of Christ on this earth. It may be running a paintbrush. It may be watching a kids group. It may be cleaning toilets. It may be bringing donuts. It may be writing a sermon. It may be just making sure the doors are unlocked so the people can get in. But whatever job that is, maybe it's inviting people to come in. Whatever that job is vitally, vitally important to the kingdom. Oh, but I'm not the senior preacher. Oh, so what? The senior preacher wouldn't be worth any preacher if he didn't have people supporting and helping do the other stuff to help make the church work.
Most of them
It's
are.
not around the senior minister. It's around everybody that attends the church and realizes they can and need to get involved and do something for the kingdom. And every one of us has something that we can contribute to wherever it is, to our church and
The Bible teaches a priesthood of all believers.
all believers. Yeah, not just guys that get paid for it. That sort of
Royal
thing.
priesthood.
Tell us about
Yeah.
it. Tell us about it, Charles.
So we'll have to take this one up in.
Charles Stanley over here?
No, that's Carl. Carl. That's Carl.
Carl?
Who?
Carl.
Yeah, Carl.
Carl.
Carl who? Marks?
Catch your side.
Catch yourself.
Who else?
Oh, we got
Karcher.
all kinds of
Catch
names there. We're going to have to take this one up during discussion time maybe, but how has Jesus changed your life? You can think about that for a minute. How can you use your gifts and talents to help spread the gospel of salvation through Jesus? Those of you that are still working, you could be the best worker on the job. And you could probably find some way that you can help out in the church too. Hey, you know what? Maybe if your only job at church is praying for the preacher. You think that it might lift him up? Think it might improve the sermons a little bit? If people would just pray for their
That
senior
was wrong
pastor?
last Sunday. You got prayed for and your sermon's a whole lot better.
Well, see, it works.
You know,
I
I
appreciate it.
I had comments that the sermon that Ben preached last Sunday was one of the finest
But there-
sermons he's preached.
Now, Richard, you got to be careful. This is on YouTube, and people are already accusing me of getting a big head. So you better not go too far with that.
Thanks to Richard.
How can you use your gifts and talents to help spread the gospel through Jesus? Don't compare yourself to others. Oh, how many times we do that. Well, I did that back in California. I was pastoring a little small church. And I was looking at a friend of mine who was pastoring a big church. And so I went to, I actually had lunch with him one time. Ben Merrill. Some of you guys know that
Yeah,
guy.
good friend. Good friend.
He took the time.
Great guy.
took the time to have lunch with this little church pastor.
That's the way Ben is.
That's right.
And I was lamenting my situation, how I'd like to be in something like his, and he straightened me out with the love of Ben.
And I'll bet you that if
He
he looked
said-
back on that and was asked questions, do you remember that? Yeah, I remember Glenn.
He
He would
said,
remember your name like that.
he said, Glenn, you don't want to pastor a big church because a big church has got big problems.
Oh,
I
Lord.
remember me.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And it
Very
kind
nice to
of,
have
okay,
problems.
I'm where I need to be, and I need to just, but yeah, I really appreciated most of all that he took the time
Yeah.
and to talk to me
Oh,
and
Lord.
try to encourage me in what he could.
You know, encouragement. I caught a little article one day by some very learned Christian. It was saying the best and the greatest are always right around you. I thought
Yeah.
that was tremendous
You
encouragement.
got people all right, Sylvia?
I read a quote, it said, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Because here's what happens when we compare
I thought
ourselves
that was interesting.
and
Glory. Thank
Williams.
God.
What was his name in Christ
Gary.
Church? Gary Williams of Christ Church, Griffin Park, pointed this out to me. When you compare yourselves to others, you're either on a pity party
Yeah.
or pride. You're either putting them down saying, well, I'm better than them, or you're putting in a pity party, I'm not as good as them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you're just letting the devil have an attack on you
Yeah.
and defeating yourself. Just ask God for guidance and direction as you seek to do what He has called you to do.
More to
You're
get us
good
in.
at it.
Yeah,
Because
it's him.
each of us are different tools in the
That's
master's
right.
toolbox.
Different
That's
dish.
right. If there were two preachers as good as me, I wouldn't be needed. I mean, if
Your different tools
Oh,
and
be
the different
careful how I
toolbox,
say
there's no
that.
question about that. But you got to remember this.
Short-term memory is not.
One basic fact is that every soul is called to the priesthood.
That's
Every
right.
soul, and we have one guide, and that's Jesus telling us to carry out the Great Commission. Every soul is responsible for that. And when you limit it to a material thing, doing something, for the individual to say, well, that's all I can do is write a letter. There's more in a person than they even know what's in them, and they have to tap themselves, tap that source, and find out what can I really do.
you know, it may be if that job is writing a letter, you might have a skill to write that letter that nobody else could write.
There could be a dozen letters you could write.
And you might touch one soul.
Yep.
Somebody touched one soul. And that person touched one soul. And that person became a great evangelist. You don't know where you are in that chain of events.
Exactly. We don't
But
know.
you want to be there.
Also, I heard somebody preaching once, we don't know sometimes what we're doing, ministering or whatever. It's
A
just-
story was told to me by J.R. Ball. He was a minister in Bakersfield, California, when I was in Wasco, California. We went up to church camp. And while we were up at church camp, some young girl, junior age I think it was, grade school, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, came up and said, do you know? And she gave him the name of her parents. And he couldn't remember that well. But she said, well, back before I was born, when my parents wanted to get married, they came to you and you counseled them and you married them. And you told them that when they got married, to make sure they weren't going to church at the time. You said, make sure you take your children to church. Well, they did that. And here, 8, 10, 12 years later, this little girl shows up talking to this preacher that her parents told her about, and tells him the story that her parents did what he told them to do. You sometimes may not know who you have influenced for Christ
Yeah.
or who you've influenced against Christ. But just ask God for the guidance to do what you're called to do. Pour your heart into it. God has got a blessing for you. You can do good things for God.
That's right.
Let's go on a little further. Take time to refresh. Matthew chapter 14, verse 13, Mark 6, 31 and 32, Luke 9, the last part of verse 10, and John 6, 1. Now the apostles seek privacy. When Jesus had heard what had happened, they became so many people were coming around that they did not even have a chance to eat. And he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. And so they went away, they took him with them, and they withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. Now, Some of you will read, I think the King James says, come apart lest you come up. Well, no, it's not quite that way. Paraphrase that, come apart lest you come apart. You better come apart before you come apart.
Good teaching.
Sometimes we need to take a vacation. Well, Jesus knows that the apostles are so full from their experiences that they need some time to unwind. They need some time to share about their trips and process what they've done. It is, if a church goes out and sends the members go out 2 by 2, canvassing or witnessing in a neighborhood, they need to gather back after that is all over, a couple hours or however long they're out, and process and share what happened. It's just part of the, it's empowering. We knocked on this door and they said, oh, we've been looking for a church, thank you. We knocked on this door and they said, you get out of here before I call the police. Or, but they need to share that stuff because it strengthens and encourages everyone else. We had this one neighbor, well, yeah, that was pretty bad, but here's what I had to go through. And I survived. You survived it, I survived it. Next time, we'll survive it even better. You know? Sharing, it helps to build one another up. So Jesus takes the apostles away from the crowd so they can relax, talk and process what they've experienced. They all get into the boat and take a ride across the Sea of Galilee. Their intention is to go to Bethsaida, a little over 3 miles away, for some solace, some quiet time. Remember, they're in Capernaum. So they're just basically going Capernaum, out to sea here, over about 3 miles over to Bethsaida, and life will go on, be just really wonderful. It's not uncommon for Christians, especially ministers and others in positions of leadership, to become so dedicated to their service for the Lord that they will start to believe that if they are not there working, a job will not get done or a project will fail. So sometimes those of us in leadership need to come apart before we come apart. We need to kind of get our heads back down to size before we think we're indispensable. Because I'll guarantee you, Jesus' church has been around a lot longer than any of us. And after we're come and gone, the church will still be here. Yes. Of course, we'll be up in heaven with Jesus, so what's the problem? But yeah, church will go on without you. So you are not as indispensable as you might like to think you are. But who's going to clean the bathrooms if I don't? Well, I'll tell you what.
Somebody else.
Somebody else. Hopefully we'll step up and say, you know what, I've been wanting to do that job. Sometimes we're trying so hard to serve the Lord or tell others about Jesus that we overwork ourselves to the point of stress. And our blood pressure gets up to 160 over 110 or something like that. And we have to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not right. Other times we experience something so powerful and dynamic that we need time to think about it and get our focus back where it belongs. I can imagine some scenarios where I could come into, I don't think I've been there yet, that could cause me to change personality and not be, just lose sight of who I am and what I need to be. And so I kind of send out little signals to myself every once in a while. Glenn, if this happens, you got to keep a head on your shoulders and not let it go to your head and misuse your life.
You really don't have that capacity, but I know someone that does.
There you go.
Well, I need that someone's help, so
You know, it's interesting you said
I can't do it by myself.
Interesting you said personality, because I heard somebody teaching the other day. It was saying our personality is what keeps us in touch with others and attention and stuff. It keeps us.
Yeah, but some people kind of forget about others and they think it's all about me. Consider some of the people that won a big sum of money in a lottery or some sort of thing, and then they quit their job, and they go buy a big fancy home, and they go on spending money like they've got it to grow on a tree, and the next thing you know, they're divorced, they're bankrupt.
Yeah. Oh, okay, right. Wrecks their lifestyle.
It totally
It
wrecks their
warns
life
about that.
because they let it all go to their head, and they ceased being who they were. Now I heard about a guy that won the lottery just recently, and he immediately hired a financial consultant and disappeared.
Be darned.
I think that guy might have a little bit of a level head on his shoulders.
Financial consultant.
Y'all were all
Yeah,
gonna be
financial
after-
consultant. He disappeared because
With the money.
when
Everybody
people
comes.
find out that you won the lottery,
Getting
you imagine
paid.
how many electric bills and phone bills and doctor bills those people get from strangers who just think, hey, you're rich, give me some of your money.
They do it all the
And all
time.
the salesmen want to sell them boats and
Oh,
houses.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, all the salespeople, hey, buy some of this from me, buy some of this from you. Got the money, you can afford it. Sometimes,
People kill you like
Yeah.
or some people will get inside,
Yeah.
become your friend, and then kill you and bury you under a piece of cement and think they're
That
gonna
was
get
in
away
the
with it.
morning's paper.
That's
Fellow
insane.
So-
won $17 million, and his girlfriend killed him for the money and buried his body buried. She was convicted.
Yep.
Yeah, life in
So-
prison. She'll never.
She just buried the body in the wrong
She
place. You
deserve
don't
it.
bury the body in your backyard.
I
Yeah.
know.
We need to get back on
Bury it in the
focus
gym
here
backyard.
and not allow ourselves to become so absorbed in an event that we think we know more than God as we are and wear ourselves out and push our power where it doesn't belong. The bottom line is this. We need to take breaks, vacations, and exercise restraint on our involvement in Christian activities so that we don't burn ourselves out.
What is that?
Well, there's one more thing. Oh, here's the map. There's Capernaum.
know what that meant?
And we're just by boat. You come out this way, and somewhere up here you kind of turn up toward Bethsaida. We're talking roughly about 3 miles. This is about 8 miles wide, 13 miles tall. You can't see the bottom down there. And so it's just that big of a journey. 3 miles. Let's see, a good person walking on flat and level ground, if they've got a good pace, can walk about 2 miles an hour. Let's see.
20
I did
minutes
2
an
miles
hour.
and a half an hour, so 4 miles an hour is
20 minutes
possible.
an hour.
So if, this is over a little bit of this, and so it might take them an hour to walk that far. I don't know how fast the boat was going, so probably took them a little longer to get over there. Well, we're going to go on. Success draws crowds, like winning the lotteries we just talked
Godly
about.
success.
Matthew chapter 4, verses 13b through 14, Mark 6, verses 33 and 34, Luke 9, 11, and John 6, verses 2 through the first part of verse 5. Hearing this, the crowds, many, saw them leaving, recognized it, learned about it, and they followed him and ran on foot from all the towns. So evidently the people in Cana and the other places around Capernaum heard about it too, and they come trotting down there and hustling down there because Jesus is in town. This guy is super popular,
Imagine that.
more popular than
that's
John
first.
Lennon of the Beatles.
Yeah. You got it back on balance again, thanks.
I just saw a little video clip about that this past week on my Facebook page, pointing out how John Lennon wasn't as popular as he thought he was. So they ran from all the towns and got there ahead of Jesus and the apostles. They could see where the boat was heading to shore, and they got there ahead of them because they saw the miraculous sign that he had performed on the sick, John says. And when Jesus landed, Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down, and his disciples, and the Jewish Passover feast was near. The Passover crowds arrive, and Jesus teaches and heals them. So, when Jesus looked up, he saw a large crowd, a great crowd coming toward him, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. They followed him, and he welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of heaven, teaching them many things about God, and healed those who needed healing, healed their sick. So much for that vacation. What was that, maybe about an hour? Hour and a half by boat? People remember what the people around Jesus still remember what they had seen and heard, yet they still want more. We were talking a little bit earlier about Zig Ziglar and how people could listen to him talk for an hour and a half and say, when he quit, why are you quitting now for? He was just that kind of guy. He had developed that ability to speak. He was so interesting to listen to. I'd like to learn from him.
If I might add, that statement there still fits every one of us too.
It does.
We're in this predicament.
We still remember what we have seen and heard about Jesus, and that's why we're here studying his life and teaching. We want more. It's just not enough. There will be some people who will go through the Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study series and say, well, that was a nice appetizer. I'm going to do it again for the main course. And they'll get some of their friends together and they'll go through getting to know Jesus again for the main course. And they'll say, man, that was great. How about dessert? And they'll get another group of friends and they'll go through it again. And they'll say, you know, that dessert was good. How about a little nightcap? And somewhere probably in there they'll run out of time. They'll get to go to heaven, see Jesus face to face. But until then, I do believe there'll be, and I don't say this for my ego. I say it because I know who Jesus is and I know how powerful His Word is.
Wow, glory, yes.
And I know that's what I'm going to be doing. Well, you'd expect that of me.
I've heard that subject referred to as a spiritual buffet. I heard
Sounds like a good thing.
Oh, glory.
Just keep going back for more
Oh, glory.
and more. I'll tell you this. I've been working on getting to know Jesus as of this date for 17 years. And every time I go through it, I pick up something that, oh, I didn't think about that before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a new application. Here's another way that it can fit to somebody's life. You will never learn enough about Jesus. You will learn enough that you can start teaching others, but you'll never learn enough for what you could learn more. And this is the way of the crowd. They want to follow them so they can receive more of what Jesus and the apostles have to offer. They manage to figure out somehow that the group is headed toward Bethsaida. They can see the boat. I mean, 3 miles offshore. Well, the boat's probably no more than a mile offshore at the furthest. If we go back there to the map and look at it, and you can see a mile down the road. You can see a fishing boat with 12 men on it. That's not like a little dinghy, one of these little jet skis, and you can see them a mile away too, that big old rooster tail going up in the back. But you can see them across there. Cassandra?
Look, the lake and the Sea of Galilee was kind of like down in the valley because it's hills, mountains all along. So it'd be very easy if they're up on the hills here and they can see looking
Right.
down. You can
They can see, that's right, they're up above, they can look down, they can see, there's the boat over there.
It's an amphitheater.
Of course, they have to go down the valley to the Jordan River and then back up to the hill on the other side of the Jordan River. But that's not impossible. They get up there, oh, yep, there they are, there they are. They look like they're heading for Bethsaida. Come on, let's go, let's go. And the crowd is gathering, and that's gathering, and they're just gaining momentum. They're heading right over there. They want to be around Jesus. Oh, if I could find just a few more people in the United States that really want to be around Jesus,
Praise God.
I'd be glad to help them find him. So they get there ahead of the boat. One of the reasons that the large crowds, large churches are large, is because they convey the aura of success. They wouldn't be big if they weren't successful. Now, grant that there have been some large churches that were successful in wrong ways, but most large churches are successful in godly ways. So I've had people criticize some of the comments I've posted on Facebook because I quoted a comment from a certain pastor. Oh, how can that person be a Christian? He's an infidel, he's a heretic, he's something terrible. I respond back to him. God may have given him a different style than he's given you, but he's reaching people for Christ. And I learned years ago, you don't criticize God's anointed.
That's right.
And so this person's got this style, this person's got that style, and this person's got this style, and this person's got this style. And everybody's different. I've got my style. Some people will criticize me before this is over.
Never saw a large church without everybody working.
Right.
Well, actually, if you find a large church, you'll find the 80-20 rule still applies. They've just got more 20.
Yeah.
And if the more 20 we get doing the work, the more 80 will come along to be a part of it. And some of those 80 will become a part of that 20. And the 80 will get bigger. And the church will get bigger.
You know, part of the amazement, I saw somebody was saying, oh, the word success is only mentioned once in the Bible. Oh, that's wild.
Well, I should look that up. That'd be an interesting little
Really?
discussion question. Richard, you got a concordance. You'll check that out in a little bit.
Word success?
Word success. You can wait. You don't have
I've
to do
been
it just
proved
yet.
wrong 400 times before, but
But large churches, you know, Crystal Cathedral, example. Some people say he went way overboard building this glass structure, and the cost overruns. He had to build such a strong steel frame to support the weight of all that glass. And he had to have that glass secured in there so strongly that winds and storms wouldn't bring pieces of glass down on congregation members when they're having services somewhere.
you're talking earthquake, right?
But look at the people that ministry has influenced for Christ. Now some object to it, And that's entitled, but that's the way God gave him to do it.
Didn't you work there for a while?
I taught Getting to Know Jesus there for 6 weeks.
Oh, that's what.
Seven.
A few times ago.
Crystal Cathedral.
So,
It's
How
in
many
Garden
are you,
Grove,
class?
California.
huh?
How many in your
I
class?
had about 10 or 12, I think the youngest one was 65, widow ladies.
I was the youngest and I
Oh,
wasn't.
Sylvia was the youngest. She wasn't, he
That
was
was a give me a
65
break.
yet. That was before she was 65.
Way
And I thought I was speaking to a bunch of people. They just kind of look like that all the time.
Serious?
Really, serious. It's like, am I getting through here? Am I tell something supposed to be funny?
Oh, Lord.
Hello, everybody home? They go back to the Minister of Education and said, we like this guy, can we keep him? I did not know that
He just
until after the 6 weeks were over and I had an interview with him and he told me.
Praise the Lord.
Well, then you
It
come.
was a brain.
So here goes my
Pay
big head again.
$75,000 a year.
I
You
shot
walk away.
myself right out of a job. Well, God's a God of grace, and
They were funny.
but the bottom line is now you know, and this could go. We could get into a deep discussion. Well, these churches spend lots of money on a building. They could spend all that money on missions.
Sure.
Well,
Sure,
maybe they
absolutely.
could.
They do.
And some churches choose to have a very simple, basic structure, and they spend all that money on missions, and they're about that big.
When I was in college, that big church in Atlanta had this big crystal cathedral.
Cathedral.
No, crystal
Mount
chandelier.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you should have heard the talk about that.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, they're going to spend
Oh,
that
my.
money on.
No missions. That's
But how many people
But it
did
was
that church
donated.
attract
That's
into
right.
the church?
So
It
they,
was donated.
Wow.
so they could make
If
them.
they, and they attract a lot of people, and what do those people have to do when they have a tendency to do when they love God?
Yeah.
They have to kind of give.
I think I know who donated
And
it too.
that extra money that they give
Yeah.
can go to missions. Big churches can sponsor many more missionaries than a small church can. So we can go back and forth on that one. It doesn't really matter. Do what God's called you to do. Be obedient. But just realize the success attracts success. And new people, obviously new churches are meeting people's needs, or those people would not be attending. New people who are looking for a church are most often drawn to large churches because they believe that they will receive a better worship experience and their needs will be met more effectively than they would be in a smaller church. Now that's a relative statement because I've talked to a lot of people that love the smaller environment.
Yep.
Now how does a big church get away with meeting people's needs when people need that smaller environment? Now they do it with small groups if they're on the ball. And small churches are effective because they aren't the big church. They have that intimacy that you can get in a smaller group, even on Sunday mornings.
That's why
So there's
house
still a
church-
point
That's
for
why house
both
churches
of
are
them.
effective.
Okay, here we go. Success, that word success is used, of course, one time in Scripture, and that is here in Joshua 1,
Got one right.
verse
Thank you.
Oh,
8.
yeah, I know where that verse
And
is.
then they shall have
that was
good
peculiar.
success.
Success, yeah.
But he's got the word succeed used
Same
twice.
job.
He's got the word succeeded used twice. He's got the word succeedest used twice.
See, yes.
King
And there's
James.
success.
That sounds
So,
like
Based
so
on
you've
King
got
James
so
translation.
you've got 2, 4, 6, 7 times success or succeeded or succeedest.
Well, it's not a whole lot of times.
But
But it's
one
an
time,
interesting
yeah,
little...
so that
Now
word
see,
success is used one time.
That's
we
even a
learned
godly
something
number.
Yes, that
tonight
doesn't even sound.
that was not in the Getting to Know Jesus lesson.
Yeah.
Because some smart aleck think he knew something I
You gonna let him do it?
didn't know. Yeah, he
So,
will.
so actually,
It's
this
the
couple,
process. It's the
Master has learned something from Jim Shile,
process. Amen.
the Bible
We
student.
can
Put
all
something in the chicken.
we can all learn something. That's right. We don't know it all.
So we got
Well,
Jim around
the
here.
bottom
keep
line
us
to this
educated.
is success attracts crowds, and of course, when that's what Jesus and the apostles are experiencing. They're experiencing
Boy.
these crowds because of the success of their ministry and their work. Well, let's go on to one more thing. Oh, there, look at this. Now, if you look real careful, right over here, does that look like the
That's a
Sea of
wild
Galilee?
statement. Oh,
And
hallelujah.
Capernaum is probably somewhere around in this area here, not too far around there. You get down towards Magdala if you get a little further. So this would be probably, very possibly, the very hillside to which Jesus has now met the crowds. And we're going to talk next week about what happens there. Well, others still need Jesus. Matthew chapter 14, verse 15, Mark 6, 35 and 36, and Luke 9, 12. As evening approached, late in the day, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "This is a remote place," they said, "and it's already very late. Send the crowd, send the people away, so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Find food and lodging, because we are in a remote place here." And I didn't think it was that remote.
No McDonald's, no Burger King. Yes.
No McDonald's, no Burger King, no Pizza Hut, no Outback, or whatever place you like to go out when you think about going out to eat. Jesus sees the crowd.
Yeah, just mention one time.
Jesus sees the crowd and has compassion on them. He teaches them and he heals their sick. They spend the remainder of their day, however much time that is, and we don't know how much it is, ministering to the crowds in this manner. Now, towards late in the afternoon, when people are getting hungry, they probably did not break for lunch. So if they had breakfast, they skipped lunch, now it's dinner time, and some of those people are like me. When my stomach starts growling, I start thinking there's things a little bit more important than whatever's going on around me. I kind of like that eating habit. So, their apostles suggest that the people need to be encouraged to leave. Okay, Jesus, you've had enough now. Not maybe so much worried. Well, maybe they are worried about themselves. I don't know. Maybe they're just worried about Jesus. Maybe they're actually, honestly, sincerely thinking about the people. And say, you know, they need to go. The party's over. Let them go, get some food, get some lodging, and go back to wherever they need to go and do whatever they need to do. From this day, it's towards late afternoon, and so they need to go get some food to eat. From this day until Jesus comes again, this world is destroyed. Let me rephrase that. From this day until Jesus comes again and this world is destroyed, there will always be those who are seeking and need Jesus. Amen. There will always be people who are seeking and need Jesus. And after this world is destroyed, or after your life is over, there will still be people that will need Jesus. The only problem is, if they're in their eternal destination, it's too late to change course. If you're in hell, you need Jesus. But you aren't going to get him. Because you had your whole life on earth to turn that boat around and head towards heaven, and you refused to do so. So nobody can be responsible for their anyone else's behavior for not accepting Christ. You will never run out of people to witness to. This is part of what makes our ministry and service to God so important, and makes our victory so great. When we get to say, well, I was sharing the gospel with somebody, talking to them today about the I am and the meaning of I am, and we're going to have some further conversation with that person. You may just see that person in church, huh, Richard? That's
Pulling
wait
wisdom
see.
teeth.
Nice.
It is all
Right, Jim? Pulling wisdom teeth.
full wisdom teeth, but maybe use a little Novocaine. Only a little bit.
Now, he ran his vehicle up to the church twice for a reason.
Well, then he wants to be heard.
That's it.
He wants to hear. It's an act of love. You're witnessing for Christ.
Oh, glory.
You're doing what you can to be
Glory.
successful in your life, to help the church be
Yeah.
successful, is an act of love towards God and others. And isn't that what it's all about?
I don't know why I'm saying this, but I think that was the toughest, most neglected word I've ever lived through to find out more about love. It's God, but I mean, I guess we all deal with that.
Takes us sometimes a little bit of effort to
This
learn
is
that.
always in the way or something.
I think when we get this building done, and everybody understands that we all have this ministry for Christ, then the love of God needs to take effect of us, and we have to understand we've only got that one day because we're not guaranteed the next day.
We
We
can't
run
go.
for that day, and then the next day comes, and we have to run for that day, and the next day comes, and we run for that day.
Your second coming
Yeah.
may be tonight. If you didn't use today for God, it's too late to go back and
Yeah.
redo it.
It could be what we're hearing since he added that, as our success is one day at a time.
Yes,
That's-
our successes.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what sure sounded like you
And
were
if you
saying.
get
Absolutely.
tomorrow, when you wake up
Glory.
tomorrow morning, you thank God for waking you up and say,
hallelujah.
God, how can I use this day to glorify you? And He will.
It's not even success, it's running for God.
Yeah.
He'll grant you success getting you through the day without stumbling and falling.
Yeah.
And maybe even grant you success in being a witness for Him.
Not
A friend
as
of
the
ours in
world sees
California
success.
would wake up every morning and say, God, how can I bless somebody today? And it was his goal in life to find a way to target and knowingly bless somebody. Maybe he'd leave an extra large tip for a waitress, or give somebody a ride, or help somebody out that had a problem with some fix-it or something like that. But that was his life mission. Well, our conclusion is this. We're going to leave this lesson right in the middle. Here's this whole crowd, they're getting hungry, and we're stopping right here. Isn't that terrible?
Gotta come next week
Gotta
at the
cook
end
the
of
food.
Yeah,
They give you a little cliffhanger there. Come back next week and find out what happens. We need to relish the victories to help us through the defeats.
Wow, that's it right there.
And we need to hear about other people fighting through the defeats to help us get through the defeats.
That's our testimony again.
That's our testimony. And every one of you has a story to tell.
Glory.
People gravitate towards success. So let's see what God can help us do for His glory and His kingdom. Next week, Jesus is going to show everyone a new kind of miracle. They haven't seen this kind of
Very
miracle
interesting.
before. See what happens and how the people respond. Right now, we're going to go over to our discussion questions on page 90. Break up into our discussion groups. And you can follow us and stay in touch with what is happening with the Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study Ministry on Plaxo, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and watch our video clips on YouTube and GodTube. Getting to Know Jesus is sponsored by New Hope Gospel Ministries. If you'd like to follow along with us and start your Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study group, or just pray for us or support our ministry, you can go to www.gettingtoknowjesus.org and find all the information that we have available for you. If you look at the lower right-hand corner, there's a button where you can make a safe and secure donation to the Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study Ministry. Or you can go to the order page and order your Getting to Know Jesus books for your Bible study group. Thank you for stopping by, and keep us in your prayers and let us know how we can pray for you.